The K-141 Kursk submarine, a jewel of the Russian fleet, met its tragic fate in the depths of the Barents Sea on August 12, 2000. The disaster resulted not only in the loss of all 118 souls on board, but also highlighted deficiencies in the post-Soviet military infrastructure and raised questions about submarine safety. The submarine. During the tension that pervaded the Cold War, before the Soviet Union came to its end, one of the greatest Soviet fears resided in the powerful fleet of United States aircraft carriers. These gigantic American vessels were perceived as a significant threat. In response, the Soviet Union allocated substantial resources to the development of weapon systems specialized in detecting and destroying American aircraft carriers in conflict situations. A legacy of this effort was the creation of the Oscar II class submarines, exemplified by the notorious Kursk. These nuclear-powered submarines were specifically designed to engage and destroy large vessels, excelling in hunting down aircraft carriers. Launched at sea in 1994, the Kursk was 154 meters long and had a submerged displacement of 24,000 tons. It was capable of carrying 24 Granite cruise missiles and had a heavy arsenal of torpedoes, making it a formidable threat to carrier groups. Belonging to the Northern Fleet, the Kursk faced budget cuts throughout the 1990s, leading to the early retirement of many submarines and surface vessels due to the severe financial crisis in post-Soviet Russia. In August 2000, the Kursk was participating in a major naval exercise in the Barents Sea, the first of its kind since the fall of the Soviet Union. The exercise aimed to demonstrate the readiness and might of the Russian fleet. The tragedy. On August 12th, routine communications with the Kursk suddenly ceased. Initial information and reports from other vessels suggested a powerful underwater explosion. Subsequent investigations revealed that the immediate cause of the disaster was the explosion of one of Kursk's torpedoes. The most accepted theory is that hydrogen peroxide, a highly volatile propellant used in the torpedo, leaked and detonated. This initial explosion triggered a second, much larger explosion, likely due to the detonation of the remaining stored torpedoes. Despite the immediate death of most of the 118 crew members, 23 of them managed to take refuge in a compartment, waiting for rescue. The survivors, led by Lieutenant Captain Dmitry Kolesnikov, fought for life amidst darkness and despair. Kolesnikov noted on a piece of paper the situation of the survivors and, in his last words, expressed a faint hope of escaping alive from that underwater hell. Meanwhile, NATO detected the explosions and sent alerts to all ships in the region. However, Russian authorities were slow to grasp the gravity of the situation, initiating search operations only after a few days. The lack of proper equipment and hesitation to accept international help hampered rescue efforts. Norwegian divers managed to open the hatch a week later, but it was too late for the survivors. According to analysts, inadequate maintenance and insufficient training played crucial roles. The struggling Russian economy at the time had negatively impacted the defense budget, affecting the maintenance of submarines and the training of their crews. The submarine's design and its safety systems were also questioned. Critics pointed out that the use of hydrogen peroxide as a propellant was inherently risky. The inadequate emergency response exacerbated the tragedy. Outdated rescue equipment and hesitation to accept foreign help delayed the rescue operations. The Kursk disaster was a severe blow to the Russian Navy and Russian society as a whole. It exposed flaws in military command, readiness for rescue, and safety infrastructure. In response, Russia implemented significant reforms in its submarine maintenance, training, and safety practices. The tragedy also encouraged the development of new submarine rescue systems. The Russian government's handling of the disaster drew public criticism and mistrust. Initially, limited transparency and reluctance to accept outside help damaged the government's image. The sinking of the Kursk is a grim reminder of the inherent dangers of submarine operations and the importance of rigorous maintenance, proper training, and preparedness for emergencies. Although reforms have been implemented in the wake of the disaster, the loss of the Kursk remains a tragic testament to the systemic failures that can arise at the intersection of military ambition and operational reality. During a meeting, a submariner's mother from the Kursk confronted Deputy Prime Minister Ilya Klebanov, seeking answers about the tragic loss of her son. "When will we get the answers we deserve?" she asked, staring directly at the Deputy Prime Minister. "You must not know what it's like to lose a son, because if you did, you wouldn't be so calm," she said, her voice laden with emotion. As she raised her voice, a Navy officer tried to approach to calm her, but she was so focused on her demands that she didn't even notice his presence. "Get rid of your medals!" she exclaimed in a cry of despair. At that moment, the officer tried to grab her arm, discreetly rolling up the sleeve of his shirt. That's when a doctor approached from behind and administered a sedative to the distraught mother's arm. She collapsed into the arms of the Russian Navy officer who held her. Subsequent investigations revealed that the cause of death for the remaining crew members was carbon monoxide inhalation a few hours after the explosions, long before any attempt at rescue. The disastrous outcome deeply shook the country and negatively impacted President Vladimir Putin's image. In October 2001, the wreckage of the Kursk was finally recovered by a Dutch company in a complex and dangerous operation. The efforts to recover the Kursk allowed for the extraction of 115 bodies and the analysis of the damaged hull in the search for definitive answers about the cause of the tragedy. The son of one of the sailors. Danis Ishmuratov, son of Fanis Ishmuratov, one of the 118 sailors who died in the Kursk disaster, lost his life in the Ukraine war in 2022. Like the fates of countless other Russian combatants who fell on Ukrainian soil, the specific details of his death have not been disclosed. "My first glimmer of memory is mourning for my father. The image of the red coffin and the red glass over it still echoes in my mind," shared Danis in an interview given in 2021. The young man's journey was cut short at 25 years old. He was only 3 years old when his father was killed in the tragedy in the Barents Sea. The theory of a collision with a NATO submarine. In the year 2021, retired Admiral Vyacheslav Popov, who was the commander of Russia's Northern Fleet at the time of the Kursk tragedy in 2000, suggested in an interview that the submarine calamity, one of the most severe of the post-Soviet era, was the result of a collision with a NATO submarine. This version contrasts with the official explanation, which points to a faulty torpedo as the trigger for the disaster. During the dialogue with RIA Novosti, a state news agency, Popov hinted that the Kursk was being secretly followed by a NATO submarine, which ended up colliding with it at a short distance, causing a devastating explosion that also damaged the Western submarine, which would have issued a distress call after the incident. Despite his claims, Popov admits the lack of concrete evidence to support his theory. The Kremlin's official stance, reiterated by spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, remains unchanged, attributing the catastrophe to an accident caused by a faulty torpedo, without directly commenting on Popov's recent statements. Admiral Popov, who was heavily criticized at the time for the inadequate management of the crisis that followed the sinking of the Kursk, had previously raised the hypothesis of a collision. However, his current narrative is more assertive and detailed. Reports in Russia mentioned the presence of American and British submarines in the vicinity of the Russian naval exercise in the Barents Sea, coinciding with the disaster. The Kursk submarine accident was a blow to the morale of the Russian armed forces, which sought to improve their deep-sea search and rescue operations in conjunction with NATO, aiming to prevent similar tragedies in the future. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell to receive more videos like this. Thank you for watching.